Hey, Mick.
Oops. The switching back and forth between Teams and Zoom and
Yeah.
Discord and everything else is really making me crazy. So, um, so
Where's my camera, by the way? Oh, this one is a different camera. Okay, good.
yeah, in response to Marcus's request from last time,
Mm-hmm.
I have been adding some documentation to the README in the Docker directory.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of call out. I have not done the actual, well, I guess I can do that right now. Give me a second.
I had forwarded the meeting to Wenny as well. Let me ping him to see if he wants to join. Okay. Okay, this is Bruno. Morning, Bruno.
Good morning.
So, Bruno, I want to come back to a couple of the things we were talking about before, about the memory allocation in a minute.
You want to discuss that? Good. I mean,
Yeah,
what we're going to do in the future?
mostly, well, the executable pieces of this, I think we need Marcella and a better understanding of WAMR. I don't want to make a change to the
Yeah.
executable until I understand what the implications are for WAMR. WAMR 210 has far more operating modes than the 1.24 that we're using. I think it's 1.24 that we're using right now. The 2.10 has interpreted, JIT interpreted, fast JIT interpreted, um, and then a couple of AOT models for it as well. Um, I'm the errors that I'm getting with it when I try with 210 were this undefined element, which looks like it's some kind of stack corruption on return, um, as far as I can tell. So it's an internal error inside the WAMR interpreter, and I can't get it to the point where it's reproducible in a way that I can actually debug it. So, um, so I have a feeling that it's about the connection between the native functions and the calling stack that we have for it. So, um, okay. So let me go back to where I was starting from. So Marcus had asked for documentation on the images. I think what I've done is add a section to the PDO Docker README with an inventory of the images. And basically, the only thing we need to run is PDO CCF, PDO services, and PDO client. None of the base images, The base images are useful for developing infrastructure. So PDO CCF base helps you build a PDO TP. PDO services base helps you build services. I think we could just, and maybe it needs to be relabeled that way. I don't know. I don't really care. But it appears that the only thing we really need archived would be the PDO CCF, the PDO services, and PDO client images.
Client or the contract? I mean, it depends on what you're trying to run.
Client, because the contract is, I mean, we're talking about CCF, or sorry, we're talking about PDO in general. So you need the PDO client because what you're doing with contracts right now is really just extending client.
That's true, yes.
So what you're going to end up with is CCF, services, client, and then based on client, you're going to get a collection of actual contract implementations of it. And so you can run everything with just the client. That's not really interesting for the most part, but you could. So that's what anyway, I'm adding a section to that README right now, which captures just that list, the articulated list. Many of the other things that Marcus was asking for, like how do you do it, are already in the patterns in that document. So there's a pattern for development, there's a pattern for running services, there's a pattern for developing services, whatever. So I'm not sure we need to do more than that.
I don't think so. FPC has something similar. We have the images, some documentations, and yeah, people, users are expected to go from there.
I mean, I guess the one thing that might be useful is to go through, I don't know, let me make sure that the section on deployment.
I have a quick, no, I understand your point that you only need client, CCF, and service images only. But for somebody who is coming new to PDO and who just wants to download one image and get to interact with it, does it make sense to put out just one image which combines all of this and they can run just to interact and see how things work?
No, I think what you're going to do is you're going to grab the YAML file. That's why the YAML files are there for Docker Compose. If you do nothing more than run it with like well, I mean, that's exactly what the test ones do in the contracts directory anyway. It's a single command. You don't have to download anything. Everything else is taken care of for you, and it pulls it all together.
No, but my point is even if we have these three images, all that I can do today is to run test. I cannot do anything more than that unless I write.
But you can't do that without applications. You can't do that without applications anyway. And you can do anything you need to do with the Docker Compose. Don't think of it as a bunch of images. Just think of it as one compose file. Yeah. All you have to do is run one command to get an image up.
Okay.
I mean, if I wrote a little bash script to hide everything behind it, you wouldn't know the difference whether there was one image or three images. It's not the number of images that you care about. What you care about is how easy it is to get a functional environment. And there is a single command version of getting a completely functional environment. Although your Guardian service is failing these days.
But that will not even be in these images, right? Because we're only now talking about the PDO.
If we're just talking about PDO, again, there is one Docker Compose that gets you a fully functional client.
Yeah. And
Now
so
the
then,
fully functional client doesn't, I mean, it has the test contracts installed. You can run the test contracts.
yes, so that's the only expectation, right? So like after we get it up with the compose file, the question is, what do you expect the user to do? Just run the tests?
They can run it, but you can't, I mean, there's nothing there. Without contracts, who cares? There is no application to run.
Right. So that was my original point. Yes, we only
So go to
need
the contracts. So
yes,
go to the
yeah.
contracts directory, and then you have them. Then you have the applications. There is no possible way that we can put an application inside the client image for someone to run. But what we have is, if you want that, then go run the test Jupyter in the contracts, because that gives you all the applications in a fully functional environment.
Right.
That is, to be clear, we have exactly what you're asking for,
Exactly.
but we don't
No,
have it
exactly.
in
So
the ODEF directory. We have it in the contracts directory,
exactly.
which is where
That
we should
was
have it, because that's
yeah.
where all
So
the interesting applications.
that was my original question, right? For somebody who wants to run a hello world in PDO, shouldn't we be pushing just the CCF services and the contracts images? We don't even need the base client image, because that's not helping
No,
them in
you do
any way.
have to. Whoa. Let's back up for a second. So again, don't use the word images. What do you want someone to be able to do? Because the number of images is irrelevant, right? It's a one
Yes.
command. You have a single command that can bring up an entire PDO deployment with applications right now. You have it right now today,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it actually has some cool applications. By the way, I got the digital asset notebooks running as well.
Yes.
So it actually has some cool applications in it. What's missing from that? I mean, okay, let's assume that we can figure out how to get the images on a Docker Hub someplace, right? Because if the images were on a Docker Hub someplace, you would not have to download anything other than a compose file.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's
right?
true. That's true. Yeah.
The problem right now is that we can't put the images on the compose file, and I don't know what you've been doing with Mike Beal, if there's a way for us to get around his limitations for it.
Yeah.
But I think we already have what you're asking for if the images were on a compose hub.
Yeah. Meeting. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah.
Your kids are growing up, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the little things that they used to be.
No.
They're actually tall enough now that you can see them when they walk into the room.
There is too many things going on. Yeah. Yeah.
So, coming back to it, what do you think is missing? I know the conversation we're having with Marcus is what images need to go on Docker Hub. And I think the only images we need on Docker Hub are CCF, services, and client. I mean, it would be nice to have one of the contract ones in there, but let's hold off on that for a minute. We got to get to that point. But those are the three we need on the hub, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we need the developer ones. If you're doing development, you can build your own versions of the base images, and who cares, right?
Yeah.
But if we have those three images on Docker Hub, what doesn't work?
Yeah. My only thing was, you should have a contracts image to run
I agree. We could take the Jupyter run without the inference service in it. We could take the Jupyter one and run that in there, and that would work just fine too.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with that is it's only a demonstration image.
That is true. It's a demonstration image.
Because the only thing that's interesting is when you put stuff into it, put additional stuff into it, right?
But that is our point, right? We want a hello world demonstration because if you want to write anything, you have to anyway
You got
compile
to
the
go
content.
do, yeah, you got to
Yeah.
go do some other things for it.
Yes. Yeah. So
But
anyway, it's not
but
useful.
I think if we look at the Jupyter, I mean, minus the inferencing, so we can configure out the inferencing services for
Yes. Yes.
the Jupyter container with the Exchange services and now the digital asset service in it would be something that would be sufficient for doing that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, I mean, one thing I can do,
I mean, I
we have our
really
own
like
internal
the.
hub. We have our own internal Docker hub. We can test this to make sure it works that way.
Yeah. Did you say exchange or the wallet? You mean the wallet, right? Is that what you're calling the digital asset?
No, we have the Exchange contract family,
Yeah.
which is all the issuer, the token issuer, and the others. We have now the digital asset, which is the NFTs for pictures. I got that working with the notebooks.
Yeah. Okay. But from the user perspective, right? From a multi-user perspective, I really like the wallet like interface just to understand
The
what
wallet's
is
part of the
going
exchange.
on.
It's part of the exchange. But the wallet's not useful if you don't have the marble assets behind it. There's nothing else to be done.
Yes. No, that's true. That's true. Of course, you definitely need the exchange. Definitely the exchange, but the way we like introduce it to the user is perhaps not via the exchange, but as the application, which is a wallet that can be exchanged.
But unless you have stuff constructed, there's nothing to put in the wallet.
No, that's true. I know.
I mean,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
you got to have, and this kind of goes back to, which is more useful, having a functioning PDO system that somebody could connect to, which is what we've talked about, or giving them a bunch of containers that still require some TLC to get going.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's a hello world, right? I'm totally okay with them. I'm not just okay. I'm really happy with Jupyter contracts, the Jupyter container with exchange contracts, as our definition of hello world.
Okay. I think one thing is missing, which is the hello world needs a notebook that says, welcome to PDO, and here's how you get yourself set up for the first demonstration application. Number one,
Yes.
go create some blue marbles. Number two, create a wallet and import those blue marbles.
Yes.
And number
Yeah.
three, do whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that stuff should come together.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
where I wanted to start this discussion was really about Marcus had this request for a list of the images. Uh, I'm going to push a PR with a small documentation change for it. Bruno, can you and Prakash do a read through on that again from the perspective of somebody who's doing the first deployment of PDO? What do we need? And this is probably too much. I mean, there's probably too much detail in the README, is really what it amounts to right now.
Well, the thing is that,
By the way, I'm talking about the README in the Docker directory, not the README in the root directory. We probably need to help that out. Go ahead.
no, I was saying that, so, well, I don't remember the README in the Docker now. Just check it quickly. Yeah, so I think we have a lot of documentation here, but I think no, never mind. We have a lot of documentation, but we want documentation for when the images are ready to be started, essentially.
But that's down in the pattern. If you look in the service deployment pattern section, that's exactly what that's for.
Yeah. So
and that's why to Prakash's point, that's still way too complicated. And what I'm suggesting is there should be a parallel document, which is the fast start guide to running PDO. And it should focus on Docker Compose to bring up the set of images, presuming that the images are already built and on some Docker Hub someplace.
Yeah, so this is where I'm just still trying to understand. When you said
Or
run
by the
PD,
way, hang on one second, Prakash. Or maybe we put that documentation in the contracts, and that's where we point everyone to for the fast start. Sorry, go ahead, Prakash.
no, is our objective is to get images to run PDO or to do a hello world of PDO?
Well, right now it's just to get the hello world in PDO itself is really how do you get an interactive client shell to a set of functioning services? Because that's all that's there, right? There are no contracts,
Correct.
right? And again, it's a single line command right now, which is, use the Docker Compose file and do compose up, and you're done.
Yes.
And we can do the same thing. I guess what I'm saying is maybe what we should do is not put that in the PDO directory. Maybe what we should do is put that in the contracts directory and have the PDO README point to the fast start contracts version of it. Does that make sense?
it's an option. Yeah.
That makes total sense because just putting it in the PDO directory, yes, we can get like everything up and running, but then what? It doesn't say then what,
It does
right?
nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I can increment a counter. I can increment a counter.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what I get to do.
Yeah, so there is no point in having that in the PDO directory. It makes total sense to have it in the contracts directory because you can do something then with that.
I do. Okay, so I do think that this on the service deployment, being able to say, here's the Docker, here's the details of what you can do, or you can use this single Docker Compose command and bring up your network. I think that would be a useful addition to the README and the PDO Docker. But I think what we should really do is point everyone to the contracts and have a test Jupyter version, which, I mean, we already have the compose command to do it. Here's a test Jupyter version that brings stuff up, and here's a document you should open that gets you started, and this is where you go. Prakash, if you're talking, you're muted. So
I was just typing to the notes.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm able to capture everything. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I think we have the test.yaml file in the PDO Docker, which you can do just a compose up and have a fully functioning system. Okay. So, okay, so the action items I have, I'm gonna add some documentation on how to use the Docker Compose to bring up we have the detailed version of it. I'll add the little bit on how to use it with Compose and how to bring up a service. And then we need to beef up the kind of the usage or the Hello World version
Yeah.
contracts.
Yeah, I think I have the main action item. I should have followed up. I never did it. So I think I need to get back with Mike Peel to explore this option that we had discussed last week as to use JIT container registry as opposed to Docker container registry because it might be the way out to be able to host images without getting into the weeds of Intel's issues.
Okay, well, check with Mike and see if we can do that. So
Yeah.
and I think Marcus was the other one that was going to be
Uh,
Marcus is not bound by the things that Intel does. If Marcus chooses to publish images on Docker Hub,
that no, but then we
you
have
don't
a
have to
very
worry about
yeah,
that.
but that's true. But then we have a very tight dependency
With what?
with with an external person maintaining it on
And
Docker Hub.
that's not a problem if what we're trying to do is to be a community-run incubation project.
No, that's true. That's definitely much better than what we have now, which is
So
nothing else.
I was going to say, why is this a problem?
No, it's not a problem, right? It's not a problem
I think
because we
this is a
have,
good thing.
yes, exactly. It is definitely like infinitely better than what we have now. But anyway, I will check with Mike also. Yeah.
Okay, so so that was that part. I have two more things on the agenda that I wanted to talk about. Can we go back and sort of open up the discussion a little bit on the memory pieces of it? So Bruno,
Sure.
I want to hold off on the executable flag
Okay. So,
until we do.
so do you want me to stop sharing my screen? And if anybody wants to
No,
share,
that's fine. Because we're going to need notes on this because there's more stuff for us to do.
okay.
Um, So I suggest we hold off on the executable bit until, or the executable flag for reserve memory in the enclave until we look at what WAMR requires, the WAMR 210 requires. So that's suggestion number one.
Which version are we running?
We're doing 124.
Mhm.
Let's see if I've got that right. It's from December 7 of 23. And if I remember correctly, it's a 1.1.2 something version. Oh, sorry, it's 1.3.0 is the version number. The current version for WAMR is 2.10, and it's a pretty significant change. The APIs don't change tremendously. Getting it to compile and run was fine, but there's something that we're doing is weird and is causing a bug. And by the way, the last time I did the upgrade, we were debugging WAMR for them. So I don't assume that it's us breaking, but something's not working. So all I'm saying is, so for the memory discussion, all I'm saying is I would like to get us up to 210 on WAMR. And again, I'm trying to push this because I think we need to get exceptions, and the exception handling looks like it might be there in 210, although I'm not sure we got CLang support. Okay, so that's number one, is I'd like to do that. Once I finish the investigation of what it requires, then I would come back and suggest we make a decision on the initial setting for the executable flag for reserve memory on that. So I'm suggesting we hold off on that decision. I think it's the right conversation to have, but I think I need more information before I know what the right thing to do is. Okay, so the second part of this is because we're doing these different memory configurations, because we made the memory configurations easy, we need to know, okay, there are two things, and Prakash, you're not going to like me for one of them, okay? One of them is Bruno's suggestion, but you're not going to like me for the other one.
Okay.
So for the memory sizes, right now we return in the enclave info the basically a name for the interpreter. So right now you can ask the enclave what interpreter you're running, and it says I'm running Wawaka. Right, here, have this.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be extended out to a little more expressive string, which includes the heap and memory allocation, and maybe like a version number for the native functions that are the extensions to it, right? So it's just a little JSON blob that says this is what the interpreter is. And that way, if I'm running a container, right now I just curl, if I want to know what it's running, I just curl the info field for the e-service, and it gives me back all the information, and I would be able to get the information about the interpreter for it. Okay, so that's suggestion number one, is that we add the metadata for that. Other than the memory configuration, we can be as coarse-grained as small, medium, and large, or we could be very specific and go all the way to heap size, stack size, linear memory size for it. I think one number which basically says this is the linear memory size that's allocated to the interpreter is probably sufficient. If you're comfortable with that, that's what I was planning on adding. Bruno, this was a question for you, because this was your suggestion.
Yeah, I think it's sufficient, because I was also thinking if we could add more options for the stack, for example, but so we really manage the stack internally within the enclave, and we don't pass big parameters. We never do that.
Those are totally separate things. So the enclave stack size, which is where your key value, which is what this enclave stack and heap, are not the same as the Wawaka stack and heap.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so keep those. I mean, the Wawaka thing has to fit inside the enclave one, but they're not the same.
Yeah, but so I was thinking, even for the key value pairs, okay, the contract could do weird stuff, but if you don't pass big objects on the stack, I mean, we would not need that, and you can always pass them by reference. So I think it's enough to have just the linear memory for now.
Okay. So we can have the memory configuration for the enclave. We can still provide more information about what the enclave is doing, like the memory size for the enclave. But I think that for a contract developer, the interesting thing is not the enclave's memory. The interesting thing is the interpreter memory, because that tells you what you can do with the contract. So just as a little background, the reason why this is coming up is I was trying to get the Jupyter notebooks working for the digital assets, right? Which is the digital asset contract family takes a picture, 24-bit BMP, and creates an NFT for it and stores the picture in there so that we can now buy and sell Bored Apes, right? If we wanted to, or whatever you want. It doesn't really care. But the problem with that was that pictures are 4 megabytes. And a 4 megabyte picture is not handled well when you convert it into a base64 representation, pass the base64 in a JSON representation, parse the JSON, then decode the base64, and then create the image out of the binary thing they had, because you end up with literally 4 copies of the image in memory because of the transcoding that's being done. So it was blowing everything in bad ways with that. So I moved to, first off, I moved to a key value store parameter to pass things in so that I can actually pass binary data in. So we have a user-defined KV store, which actually is starting to throw some exceptions in the KV code, by the way. So I need to come back to you on how this is working, Bruno. So that is, to be clear, we are pushing the limits on what your KV code was doing. And it's starting to show a couple of rough edges after years of use. So I'll come back to you on that one. But anyway, the point was that a 4 megabyte image, given that our linear size was 2 megabytes before, was just blowing everything up. So if I want to do anything interesting with the contracts, I need more memory. So that was kind of what was prompting a lot of the work that I did last week on that. So it's the contracts that need to know the memory sizes, not the it's the contract developers that need to know the interpreter side. They don't really care how much memory is in the enclave per se. Okay, Prakash, the reason why you're not going to like me is, does it make sense? Do we need all of our enclaves to have the exact same memory allocation in order for them to participate in a PDO ledger? Or can we have enclaves that are the same compilation and the only difference between them is the linear memory, is the enclave memory and the linear memory in the interpreter? And the reason why this is nasty is that the implication is that the PDO-TP now has to handle multiple MR enclaves. Bruno, don't roll your eyes at me.
Oh, that's Prakash.
No, Prakash is just like, think you're stupid. I'm not going to do this. Don't bother with it.
No. I have a larger question. Even to start with, because we're still assuming that SGX enclaves are not the Ice Lake enclaves, right? So, I mean, are we like over-engineering at this point rather than just assuming that, hey, if you want more memory, run in Ice Lake and you're all set for now?
I'm actually kind of okay with that approach, with bumping up the memory sizes for things for that. But I do think we have to be a little bit careful, because remember, the interpreters, we create an interpreter every time we start. So
Yes.
if I just come in and I have to pre-allocate the linear memory for it, right? I can't just let it run. Since I have to pre-allocate the memory for it, you're basically allocating, I mean, right now, we're allocating 16 megabytes on start for the interpreter.
That's too small.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, but for performance reasons, do you really want to do that? Now, okay, so here's another option that we could do, is we assume Ice Lake, and then we drop the pre-allocated memory and we just let the allocator inside WAMR take care of it. Now, the problem with that is we potentially lose determinism.
You mean adopting dynamic memory at the enclave level and WAMR level?
No, I'm not suggesting dynamic memory at the enclave level, because the enclave is allocated once at service startup. I don't really care about that, right? But
Okay.
right now, we go through and we allocate out of the enclave's memory a 16 megabyte chunk for every single operation we perform in the interpreter because we need to have a clean slate with the interpreter.
Yeah.
I mean, the reasoning for it was both to control memory use in the interpreter.
Yeah, I mean, so going back to your like earlier questions, right? Like answering your question of do we need to support more than one MR enclave? The answer is yes. That is under the assumption that we will continue to support not just one piece of hardware, but another kind of hardware where it will have its own configuration of interpreter and memory. So meaning it will have its own MR enclave.
Yeah. I don't believe this is a high priority issue, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of all the things we got going on, this is not one that's going to break the bank. But
Yeah. One more question is, suppose if we have Ice Lake, can we do something more interesting uh than what we're doing today?
I think there are a couple answers to that. One is, Bruno, you're going to have to tell me what the allocation looks like for, do we have to set aside memory for it? Because the current, if you look at our PDO enclave config XML file, there are a bunch of flags we're not setting. So memory has three, each of those memory has three different flags, or two or three. There's an init, there's a allocate, and then there's a max. And right now, I think the only thing we're setting is the max, right? Or only thing we're setting is the init.
Yeah, because the others I think only make sense if you are running with eDMM with dynamic memory.
Right, but that's kind of the question that Prakash is asking, right?
Yeah, at the enclave level, we could do
Yeah.
something better, which is that we don't have to pre-allocate the memory for the enclave, or we don't have to instruct the SDK to create an enclave with the with all the memory available up front. Yeah.
Right. Which, by the way, also with the reserve memory, you have to set both the init and the max sizes.
I think it's similarly, it works similarly for that.
Because well, I had to put them in the config file because I know that 210 requires reserve memory. For whatever reason, it requires SGX reserve memory. It's pre-allocating it. But you have to set both the init and the max on it in order to get the numbers right. Okay, that's a complete side note. So I guess my question, Bruno, is could you do just a little bit of investigation on what the right thing to do is for memory management at the enclave level?
Mm-hmm.
Because increasing the size of the memory, I mean, we need to understand the performance implications of this on a per contract operation basis, not on startup. So simple thing is, I don't care about the startup cost. You pay it once, and in theory, the enclave is going to last for a long time, right? But the per operation cost of initializing an interpreter is what I'm worried about. So if you can look at the enclave memory, I will look at the memory management in WAMR and see if there's anything we can do to make it run better.
Well, I can take a closer look at that, but again, at the enclave level, okay, maybe we can use dynamic memory, and the only cost that you have in that case is the cost to warm up the enclave, simply if you need additional pages at the beginning. Aside from that, we need to understand which platforms support SGX 2.0, because we're not using that because we don't have the well, the platforms to experiment with that.
Yeah. Okay, but well, okay, this is a separate conversation we can have in our group meeting for the
Yeah.
development stuff, but I do think that that's something that we should take a look at. Okay. I have one final thing, Prakash. This is coming back to you as well. So yeah, okay. Um, um, and Wenyi, this is also for you. I have a first pass at a decentralized identity and policy framework, which might be something that can be useful in the contracts repo. It is very immature. Prakash, how do you feel about, I mean, we have historically not put in, we have not done under development contracts as much in the PDO contracts repo. Are we allowed to do under development contracts there?
What do you mean by underdevelopment?
Well, in the past, we've always put something in that was more or less functional, and we kind of
Uh-huh.
expected it to work.
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
know what you mean.
Um, this one doesn't work. I mean, it works. It does interesting stuff, but it is very much a fluid under
we
development.
yeah we
So,
can always add a development branch to that repo and push a
that was
PR against
exactly,
that.
yeah, that's what I was going to suggest is should we have a development branch or a per contract family development branch?
That yeah, I'll just set up with one development. Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. Yeah. I like that idea actually.
Okay, well
So
let me take a look at what it would take to actually create
so
the
so
development branch like
so I have a
I just
question.
want it well understood that it is not going to pass the tests consistently. It's not going to behave as you expect, but it's an interesting start down the path, and I would like feedback on what we should be doing on it.
No, so if it is a per contract development branch, are you imagining a world where people directly develop there without pull requests and all?
Well, that's my question. I would expect pull requests in those.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because the last time I was in the internal meeting for how to contribute to third-party managed open source projects, suggestions from some of the folks were that maintaining your own fork and doing pull requests, that's the old way of doing this. Don't do it anymore. Intel does not advocate it anymore. Apparently, that's a message that I heard, and I don't even know what is supposed to replace it.
Everyone I know does it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you can find out more information, I would appreciate that. But
Yeah.
are you are you okay, or how do you want me, I guess, to put the proposal together for how we do the development branch?
I know I really like your idea of maintaining one development branch for each contract that anybody can come and so we can easily do like this, right? Like author name, contract name, like underscore development, right? There is no restriction on like the number of development branches that we can do, right? And so the author is an entity that it could be a two-person team or one-person team, right? With the understanding that we both are going to jointly work on it. So if it's a two-person team, then they manage how to add changes to that either directly or indirectly via pull requests. Except that the
Okay,
community will not come and review any of those.
okay. I would I would request that we not include the author name and simply call it and simply do it based on a contract family name.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
And I like the underscore development or whatever it is, just to make
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I have tried not to push immature code out there.
Yeah. I have a
Stuff that
lot of
doesn't
immature
work.
code. I have a lot of immature code lying around.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are the master of the immature code right now.
I have a lot of
But it
it
would be
lying
nice
around.
that,
Yeah.
okay, assuming all of the appropriate open source boxes are ticked, it would be nice to have, for example, your Hugging Face code or some of the
Yeah.
other things that we've
Yeah.
done out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the Hugging Face contract implemented, but I don't have the UI for that yet. So it's still lying down in my machine like until I implement
Yeah.
the notebook for that. Yeah. But I've done the contracts, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. All right. The last thing that I was going to bring up for today is I signed up for a presentation to the Hyperledger talk, the Technical Oversight Committee, with PDO as an incubation project for July 11th, I believe. It's the Thursday after. So I need to get on filling out the forms and getting the proposal put together. So when is our next meeting is July 2nd, right? The next of these meetings. I will have a draft of the proposal by July 2nd.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have a quick question to Venyi. Venyi, do you think we should invite some more people from your university or others that you might know working in the digital identity space that might benefit or be able to contribute here?
You mean this summer?
In general, right? In general, this is regardless.
Oh,
I mean, this is an open source community
uh,
meeting, right? So yeah.
okay. Uh, I'm not sure. It's like I'm the only one left that's working on this side of
Okay. Okay.
this side of
Yeah.
working in our lab. But I think we're gonna have two more new students coming
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the coming August.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
But you,
I'm just not
yeah.
sure. I'm not sure
Okay.
what's they gonna do.
But what blockchain were you using in your project? Was it Ethereum?
Oh no, we mostly use Fabric.
The Fabric. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So are we all done for today?
Yep. Anything else for today? All right.
So Bruno, is it okay if I put that you will investigate memory management?
Yeah, I can take a better look at that.
I'm just going to put it. I'm not writing the scope or anything. So you just yeah, just up for some notes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Right. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.